So it's time for our first keynote of the day, and it's looking at this topic of how US-based legislation and politics can impact EU-based life sciences companies who are looking to get into the US market. So please welcome from McDermott, Will and Emery, James Ravitz.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. Well, big thanks to the folks that are sponsoring the conference, Health Tech Innovation Days. I was here yesterday. I met with a number of companies, really exciting technology and really exciting stuff, new products coming out, and obviously a real race to funding. The folks that I met with, are obviously focused on EU funding, but also very interested in having sort of a parallel pathway for both U.S. market access and for U.S. funding. And so I like how folks are sort of keeping their eyes on the prize, which is how do we get to the next level? So by way of introduction, I'm Jamie Ravitz. James is my full name, but Jamie Ravitz, that's what my friends call me. I'm a partner at McDermott, Will and Emery. I'm based in Washington, D.C. I'm the co-head of our life sciences industry practice, and I'm the head of our U.S. Food and Drug Administration practice. We have about 10 lawyers in our group. We're scattered around the country, but mostly based in Washington, D.C., because that's really the cradle of where you have the regulatory agencies and obviously where FDA is based, which is actually just outside of DC in Rockville, Maryland. So I have a short amount of time, and it's getting shorter according to this clock, to discuss sort of a big topic. And I thought, there's a lot of different changes that are going on, that are always going on in sort of Washington with regulatory agencies, particularly with FDA, but I thought I would focus on sort of AI. Artificial intelligence. I'm sure you've all heard of it. It's not a small thing. And it's something that really is an evolving area. It's here to stay. It may go by different names in the future, but it's something that is going to stick with us for quite some time, if not forever. And it truly represents a revolution of ideas and a revolution of science, a revolution of regulation. And I want to talk a little bit about how FDA is handling that, and particularly how the implications of how AI could help with product approvals, the impact on your business and regulatory strategies, and particularly how you want to enter the U.S. market. I really don't need to go terribly further into how big of a deal AI is, at least in the United States. I'm sure it's as big here. So let me go a little bit. Let me just sort of set the stage of what's going on. The Biden administration emphasized that there's a need for regulatory agencies to really develop, how they're going to prepare and regulate AI, and this is across all the agencies, not just FDA. And he issued an executive order on safe, secure, and trustworthy AI, which directed the agencies to advance how they're going to regulate AI and how they're going to, what's the responsible use of AI, because frankly, it's scary. But it holds a lot of promise, particularly in the healthcare world and the development of affordable and life-saving drugs and medical devices. And with that initiative that the president gave with that executive order, he ordered the FDA commissioner, Bob Califf, to then take action. But really, the FDA had already been taking action. So Califf directed the 3 major therapy centers, the Center for Drugs, the Center for Devices, the Center for Biologics, along with the Office of Combination Products, which is an office sort of that sits in between the different agencies, to work together. And they issued a joint paper discussing how they're going to work together to address AI. And frankly, when you kind of blow the smoke away, it was really just an agreement to agree. But it does signal, hey, there's more to come. There's going to be a lot of development in this area, particularly regulatory development. And when you look back in the past 5 or so years, FDA has tried, actually more than 5 years, maybe, even going back almost 10 years, FDA has tried really hard to adapt. And it's hard for regulatory agencies, particularly the FDA, to adapt to new technologies. It's always playing catch up. It'll always play catch up. But what it has done, if you look back at the things it has done, it's published 4 discussion papers, 6 constituent updates, an action plan, a focus area report, and a guidance document. And FDA established the Center for Clinical Trial Innovation, which has been sort of a key initiative in this regard. It's a program that encourages the use of advanced technologies, including AI, to streamline the drug development process and develop innovative clinical trial designs to address growing demands of drug development. We've really become accustomed, I think, to what appears to be a glacial pace in the regulatory world. So when you look back at this, it's really, it's really quite remarkable. It's been a significant leap forward. And when you think about it, traditionally the drug process has been defined by its, what some may say it's its necessary length, right? There's long clinical trials, extensive data analysis, rigorous review cycles, not to mention the expensive and tedious process of developing a drug, including disease target identification, discovery of molecules that can be delivered effectively to neutralize their target. So the incorporation of AI into this process aims to enhance efficiency and accuracy and promises to reshape the way new therapies are evaluated. So what's happening with AI companies? I think probably the biggest shortcut that we're seeing is that AI is really helping in discovering new drug molecules, new biomarkers, endpoints or targets for therapy. It's opening the door for access to existing accelerated approvals, which is already an established process in the United States, as I'm sure you're aware, particularly in the rare diseases and other breakthrough therapy spaces. And in fact, a lot of the companies I met with yesterday really are shooting for orphan drug, rare disease drugs, and going for breakthrough therapies. So this, in conjunction with the existing programs, could really move things along quite a lot. So what is FDA seen? So far there's been about 700 or more than 700 AI or machine learning devices that have been approved or authorized or cleared, including various diagnostic devices that that treat retinopathy, autism, lesions, tumor growth, etc. The Center for Drugs and Biologics had over 100 drug and biologic applications with AI or machine learning components that have been submitted in 2021 alone. So things are really moving along, despite what seems to be a slower regulatory pace. Things from the technology standpoint, not surprisingly, are really moving quickly. So what's the impact? What's the impact of sort of AI? How is FDA handling it? What's going on? Obviously, the integration of AI into the drug approval process really holds a lot of promise for significantly reducing the time required for therapies to reach the market. And there's 4 factors that are probably contributing to this. The first is predictive analysis and real-time monitoring. So AI-driven predictive analysis, they can forecast clinical outcomes based on historical data and improving the design and efficiency of trials. Then real-time monitoring of clinical trials using AI enables the identification of adverse events or unexpected outcomes that allow for the timely intervention and making adjustments on the fly during a clinical trial. So this proactive approach really reduces a lot of delays. You no longer have to wait for certain types of data to be accumulated. And in fact, just a practical example, one company, IMO Health, is using AI to screen electronic health records to assist in identifying patients that are most likely to respond to cancer-related drug therapies in their radiation oncology studies. And these IMO researchers, in that study, extracted data from patient EHRs, electronic health records, and utilize various natural language processing to screen pathology reports for certain biomarkers like tumor size, stage, and things of that nature. Being able to screen patient populations to improve sort of how patients are going to improve, how patients are going to react in a particular trial for a particular drug is a huge advancement, huge. It's going to really, we're already seeing it, that it's enhancing sort of how companies can how quickly they can get through trials and the quality of the data that they're receiving. Okay, the second one, enhancing drug discovery. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I'll say it again. AI algorithms are used in the early stages of drug discovery to identify potential drug candidates much more efficiently than before. But when you think about it, the raw data up until this point has really been, it takes about 14, 15 years for a drug to get through an FDA process. It takes about more than $1 billion to go from that sort of molecule identification all the way through the end to FDA approval. I know for a lot of folks here, I don't know about you, but that's a lot of money to me. And I know folks here are raising money, so don't let that scare you off. But so by analyzing all these vast data sets, including sort of molecular structures, biological interactions, AI can really predict which compounds are most likely to be effective, and therefore dramatically reducing the time and resources that are needed at those very early stages. When you think about the drug target, you think about the molecules, how to deliver effectively the molecule to the target, AI is now taking that and really advancing it much further. So let me give you a few examples. A company called Exscientia was able to utilize its AI technology to take its phase 1 obsessive compulsive drug molecule from discovery to clinical trials in 12 months. That's huge. Another example, in silico medicine in China, developed a machine learning model to actively search for drug molecules, and adopted AI as really its sole platform, which it's developed its entire drug discovery pipeline. It took them 3 years to get to clinical trials from the benchtop, and using its AI-discovered drug molecule. Recursion Pharmaceuticals, another great example. They have 4 drug candidates in clinical trials, aided by investing in creating a vast neural network of databases of chemical and biological information in which it can run like 1.5 million experiments per week. And these advancements are, obviously demonstrate sort of the practical impacts. Okay, the third one, novel therapies. AI opened the door to novel therapies in the forms of treatment and potential for technologies to support therapies. So another example, University of California in San Francisco, the researchers there were able to combine a brain-computer interface utilizing machine learning to assist paralyzed patients with speech impediments to generate words and phrases on a computer by reading electrical signals in the brain. And then fourth, partnerships. And this is probably something that you folks are interested in. Leveraging AI technology to partner with established life sciences companies, a number of which we see here on this board. So for example, Benevolent AI has a team focused on developing their potential molecular assets, but also heavily leaning on partnerships with companies like AstraZeneca and Novartis to develop models and test molecules, as I mentioned a moment ago. And it's not really just with startups. NVIDIA, increasingly focused on drug discovery, along with Alphabet Inc., which is Google, their subsidiary, Isomorphic Labs, which has entered into agreements with Lilly and Novartis for the same. So what are some of the potential regulatory considerations? I need to move it along a little bit. Well, despite the promise that AI holds, there is going to be some challenges in complying with FDA regulatory requirements, because those are going to change. I mean, you can bank on that. So, for example, companies that are using cloud applications and cloud computing have to ensure data integrity and data quality in these environments are accounted for. So, when you think about existing quality agreements or any quality agreements that you have with any third-party providers, you want to make sure that those address adequate monitoring and adequate control in the context of how the data is being used, where it's being stored, who has access to it. Another issue, as I mentioned a moment ago, AI's role in data gathering and analysis can be pivotal, right? The vast amounts of data from clinical trials, electronic health records, real-world evidence, and with this combing of health records, now we've got data security and privacy concerns. What happens in the case of a data breach? Who reports? Who's responsible for it? Is the mere use of AI a data breach in and of itself? These are all different, questions that companies are grappling with and trying to adapt to. And right now, FDA is really in data gathering mode, right? We're still seeing it at its early stages, even though I said 5 to 10 years, but in the continuum of the regulatory world, 5 to 10 years is nothing. So we're still in the infancy, and FDA is frequently soliciting direct input from stakeholders like yourselves to better inform how they're going to regulate AI. Not just not at early stages, but really across the whole product life cycle. And this is really the moment that you can work with FDA. You can submit comments or at least be informed in what FDA is doing. And you can fully expect, as we do, that the agency is going to promulgate additional draft guidances on how they intend to monitor and regulate the use of AI. And so it's important that you at least stay updated. So what does this mean for EU-based companies? 3 things. 1, obviously, opportunities for faster market entry. The ability to leverage AI for expedited approvals provides a unique opportunity for you, the EU-based companies. Faster drug approvals can enhance your market position, allow you to capitalize on new opportunities more rapidly. It makes you more sexy. Not that you're not sexy altogether to investors, but AI is a buzzword. And particularly when you have, first mover advantage, it can be critical to capturing sort of that segment. Plus, if you think about it from a patent standpoint, the quicker you can get through the market access process, the more life you have on the patent. Because remember, you've got 20 years. A lot of that time is eaten up during the drug approval process, drug discovery process, et cetera. So the more time you have on the back end, in addition to sort of the FDA regulatory exclusivities you get, the better. But you're going to have challenges, obviously. Navigating sort of this evolving framework is going to be difficult. You're going to have to ensure that your AI systems, to the extent you use them, are in compliance with FDA's rigorous standards for accuracy, transparency, non-bias, and obviously in your data sets, algorithms, and what other elements you're going to use. You're going to need to implicate safeguards and other policies to protect against security breaches, and that may involve an expenditure, right? Investment in new technology, developing new partnerships, but that could wind up being to your benefit, and conducting additional validation studies. And then finally, strategic adaptation. So to enter the US market, EU-based companies really need to adapt their strategies to align with FDA's regulatory expectations. And you need to take advantage of FDA's programs, as well as the ability to solicit input. So recommend that you engage proactively with FDA, requesting early pre-submission meetings, educating FDA on sort of your novel AI technologies through participating in workshops, hearings, advisory committee meetings, and commenting on rulemaking and guidance documents. I know my friend and client, Jan Larman here from Aurora, has had a great experience in interacting with FDA very early on, and frustrating experience interacting with FDA early on, but still a valuable exercise nonetheless. So in this last minute and a half, let me just talk about kind of the shifting political environment and how that's going to impact. Obviously, we have a presidential election coming up, and we're going to have an administration change. It's either going to be a Harris administration or it's going to be a Trump administration. And so to a greater or lesser extent, you can expect change. And remember that the FDA commissioner really serves, it's a presidential appointee. They serve at the pleasure of the president, advancing the president's policies, initiatives, and et cetera. obviously political changes are going to have an impact. So if you think about it, it really takes like a year for the agencies. They have to get a new commissioner. It takes a little while for the commissioner to get through the approval process. So we're probably not going to see anything until well into 2025 for all of the agencies, except maybe the federal, the folks in what we call the Fed, which is sort of who regulates interest rates and things like that. But if you think about sort of what their campaign promises are and policies, everyone says the same thing: reducing healthcare costs, reforms, blah, 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 blah. But for these two candidates, you kind of look backwards to look forward. So for Trump, we've already seen him. We saw him in 2016 to 2020. And frankly, he was actually pretty hands-off. I mean, unlike a lot of the other things that he did, he was pretty hands-off with this agency. And if you think about sort of what he did with COVID and getting the vaccines through, in addition to sort of all the other noise that went on, it was an agency that was pretty nimble. Scott Gottlieb was a pretty amazing FDA commissioner and really embraced AI. The Harris administration will probably expect it to look a lot like how Biden is proceeding. A little bit more sort of lumbering along, big agency, should be well funded, but on the other hand, we could see things like longer review times, less ability to adapt, and things of that nature. So I'm out of time here, and so let me wrap up. Most of you are at an early stage. You're looking for funding. Investors are inevitably going to ask, what's your plan for market access? What's your timeline? How do you know that's all the funding you need to get through phase 2A? Things like that. So think about ways how you can create efficiencies in your process. Yeah, AI is a game changer for sure. It can help you shorten development timelines and clinical study timelines, but figure out ways how you can leverage these technologies to your advantage. So thank you. Appreciate, sorry I went over by a minute or two here. Appreciate being here. Thank you very much. And, reach out to me if my email's not on there, but we have some folks around here. We have this terrific Paris office, and you can reach out to any of us at any time. Thanks so much.
Just before you go, one quick question, because we have a round table and they're just bringing the guests in, so I think I have about 30 seconds to ask you.
Okay.
After about 30 years in tech in the UK and the EU, what I've found is you can slide under the radar as far as new tech goes for a little while, but then when the legislation does come in, it bites quite hard, and it doesn't always bite in the right place. And then it takes a while to refine it. Would you say that's similar in the US?
Absolutely. So, and that's actually a great example from the diagnostic industry, right? So they sort of slid under the radar for a long time. It created this terrific industry and so on and so forth. And, the diagnostic industry, so it slid under the radar for a long time. And then all of a sudden it got really big. And then, FDA is now saying, okay, well, we're going to change the whole paradigm for how diagnostics are going to be regulated, and it's causing a lot of panic among a lot of companies that are producing a lot of important products. So absolutely, I would say that's the case in the U.S. as well.
Okay, so just one thing to be aware of, that at some point the regulation may bite. Hold fast, because it often relaxes again, doesn't it?
That's right. Don't be hasty, as your parents might say. Just sit back, let the field play out, and then do decision making after that. But information gather, do due diligence, see how the market reacts, and then you can make changes. But agree, don't be hasty.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.